So when we're talking about value as an element of art, we want to consider it in that sense, like it's part of pretty much any artwork, and it fits right along with those other elements of art. So let's go ahead and look at this slide, which is today's slide. And remembering back, have any of you done a value scale in the past? I have a couple right on this slide. Give me a thumbs up if you've done a value scale in the past. Let me zoom in on some of these. Oh yeah, Mason remembers. Okay, good. Eric, what about you, Marissa? Perhaps. Okay. They sometimes feel like torture. I would argue they are sometimes fun. I did one in college that was, I remember because it was pretty torturous. It was only three like rows. You see how these are organized in rows usually, or columns sometimes if they go up and down. It was only three rows, but it was really difficult. And our professor said pretty much that if it wasn't perfect, we were going to fail. It was so much pressure. And I mean, that's just the way it was. It was really hard. And I remember slaving over it for hours. And it had paint and I think pencil and something else. And we had to cut out the squares and then glue them on like a collage. And so it was added pressure. A value scale, if I zoom in, these are just, this was like a screenshot I took off the internet. It wasn't even anybody of ours, but this is a good representation of a little like snapshot of various value scales. Value scales typically go from the whitest, brightest, purest white to the darkest, heaviest, fullest black. Okay, so value scales are useful for a couple of different reasons. First of all, they give you good practice. They give you practice at progressing from very light to very dark and everything in between, all those steps in between. They're also very handy because you will compare both your subject or the scene that you're looking at and your artwork to that full range of value. I just happened to see in my view here, I've been doing this all day, but do you see this book that I'm holding up in my camera view here? For instance, if you had a value scale and you held it up in front of your artwork, let's say this was your artwork, this eyeball here, you would be able to say, oh yes, here's the black value according to my value scale. Here is, you know, the light value according to this. And I this morning I was doodling in my first, Mason, you best be putting that phone away. This morning when I was doodling in my first period class, while my phone was rebooting, oh, here, let me fold that again. Didn't fold it good enough. I made a quick value scale with my Ticonderoga, and this is what I just kind of whipped together really quick. It's not the world's best, but it works. So what you would do is say, oh yeah, look, you know, here's how the value scale is coming around in my artwork here. I need to, make those much darker, or I've got a good range. That's how you'd start comparing values from your value scale into your artwork. So a good successful artwork, generally, this is not a rule, like if you held it up and you're like, nope, there's no number 7 in there, that's it, it's done. Okay, generally speaking, a good artwork is going to have a full range of value from very light to very dark. Okay, not always, it's not a law, like I said, but that's generally something that we're going to shoot for. Okay, when we're talking about value, let's start here. I have this adorable little video. Okay, I'm going to play this right now. You will enjoy.
Well, you may know about color, also called a hue, but today we're gonna talk about value. So here's the color wheel, yeah, you know, and here's black and white. Well, where do they go? They don't have a spot, but you can add them to any color on the wheel, or all of them too. Let's try. Let's try. Just take any color and then add black. Good job. Now, the color is dark. A color that's dark is also called a shade. Mix black and red and maroon is made. I said a color that's dark is also called a shade. Mix black and red and maroon is made. Let's try. Let's try. Just take any color and then add white. Good job. Now, the color is light. A color that's lighter is also called a tint. Mix white and red and you get pink. I said a color that's lighter is also called a tint. Mix white and red and you get pink. Value, tones, tints, and shades. Value, white, black, and gray. Value. Now, what about gray? What is that? Well, that's what you get when you mix white and black. Add gray to a color and you get a tone. There's not just one, but many tones. So get some paints and experiment and make a lot of shades, tones, and tints. Let's review. Let's review. Add black to a color to get a shade. Add gray to a color and tones are made. Add white to a color, you get a tint. Line them up from light to dark, you get a gradient. This is what we mean when we say value, the lightness or darkness of a color or hue. One more time. One more time. Add black to a color to get a shade. Add gray to a color and tones are made. Add white to a color, you get a tint. Line them up from light to dark, you get a gradient. This is what we mean when we say value, the lightness or darkness of a color or hue. This is what we mean when we say value, the lightness or darkness of a color or hue. Value, tones, tints, and shades. Value, white, black, and grays. Value, tones, tints, and shades. Value, white, black, and grays. White, black, and grays.
That was pretty fantastic. Stuck in your head all day. You're welcome. That was the fourth time I've had to listen to it. So, okay, so that's a good little description. And what I like about it is that it reminds us of, first of all, the way to mix different shades and tints with colors, because that's an important connection. Sometimes people think that value only has to do with shades of black and white, where, you know, grays, black and white, but it does also relate to color. So a lot of artists work by putting down black, white, grays, and then translating that into color when they work, especially like in a painting, especially a complicated painting. But you don't have to work that way. Let's take a look at this sheet right here. This has a nice little look at how certain artists create value in their artwork. Because as the video said, you can take paint and mix it with white to get a tint. You can mix it with black to get a shade. And if you mix black and white together with a color, that's called a tone, okay? But that's not the only way that you want to think about value, okay? Value definitely can just be that shades of gray from white to black, okay? The lightness or darkness of the color, and also that successful range from very light to very dark. So when we look at these artworks down here, there's a number of ways that you can create a range of value. The fine arts kids have been doing some shading and different techniques off and on since the year began. You guys in the digital art class haven't been doing as much, but you have throughout art in your lifetime. So cross-hatching is a way to use lines, kind of like what we were talking about with texture in Van Gogh, because when you're using lines that cross over each other, you can pack them in tighter, you can layer them over each other more and more and more. This kind of artwork on the far left was an etching. So that artist literally took sharp stuff, sharp tools, and etched them and made digs into metal, then put ink into that, smooshed ink into it, and pulled a print off of it with paper. That's how the dark values were made in that case. In the middle, it says paint can be mixed to create a full range of values. And that's a painting by Monet. When Monet painted, he would mix many, many, many different colors to create his different painting forms. So those are haystacks, which you may, you know, we're familiar with haystacks around here, and they are not super like defined into edges. He didn't use hardly any lines. He used paint dabs. So everything was like a dab, 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 dab all over and just layered up to cause the effect of dark areas and roundness or shadows. He was really an expert in paint mixing of values. And then lastly, we have this drawing here by Da Vinci, who shows that you can use pencil or charcoal in a blended way, which is smooth. So using, instead of lines like Durer in the first one, or paint dabs of color like Monet, Da Vinci used pencil or charcoal and very smoothly shaded from one value to another. So there's lots of ways to use value in your artwork, which brings me to this one, which is like so cool. I just found this value scale this morning, and well, it's actually four different value scales kind of presented together. They look like they're all digitally created, which is not, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Most of the value scales that you've probably created or seen were done with pencil or pen, but this one looks like it's digitally created. At the very top, you can see numbers. Those represent the percent of gray that it's representing. So that top scale that's broken into chunks, that's called a segmented scale. So a segmented scale is flat in each segment. Each box is like a segmented flat gray value. Then below that, we have a blended scale. So it goes smoothly from one side to the other with like no breaks or anything. I mean, I feel like if you really look at it, you can see a little bit. That's just because of pixels. Okay, so if you were doing that one with your pencil or charcoal, you would try to make, or paint, no breaks or discernible lines or edges whatsoever. And then this part makes me very excited as a digital artist. There are photographs that are sort of indicating and showing a grayscale. And then below that, which I've done one of these before by myself and with students, is a grayscale that's created using font or type or typography. So here's what I want you to do. Watch what my body's doing. I'm going to sit up a little back from my computer. Now, I don't know if you're using your phone or your iPad, but like prop it up so you can look at it like this. Okay. So I have the image big on my screen. I want you to look at it like that. And this is how you really identify and focus on value in an artwork or a subject. You're going to look at it face on. You don't want to like view it askance, like kind of on the side or anything like that. And I want you to squint. Seems weird, but it's true. If you had Mrs. Kameen, you probably already did this. So when you squint like this, you're kind of canceling out details and what's called local color. So this image does not have any local color because it's black and white, but you can squint to get rid of details, and what should emerge are the extremes, the very black, the very white, and then the middle kind of, and all the details kind of fade away. So when you do that, you should see that that dark side stands out, and the left, the right where it's bright, you know, you can kind of see that too, sort of by its contrast really against the black. So now try that in somewhere else around you. Okay, so people at home, look at somewhere in your room. Hopefully it's bright enough. Mason's in here. He can look anywhere in the room except for the white wall. And try doing that somewhere with stuff that has color. Okay, so like I'm going to turn and look right next to my desk. I have my little plastic animals that have like, or there's a tiger right here that's orange and black. Oh, excuse me, next to a calendar and a fake plant. So I'm going to squint at them. And what I notice is that my calendar has a white page, so it's bright. And the tiger has black stripes, and those pop out. The white on the tiger pops out, but the orange is kind of like fading away because local color kind of just dissolves. So when you're squinting, the value comes forward and emerges while the local color and the detail kind of fades away. And that's one good way for you to sort of test the water on your value. So if you squint at my value scale, the same thing should happen, that you really see the dark values and it kind of peters off into the white of the paper on the side. Okay, so what this means is that when you get started on your artwork and your drawing, or even if you're working on your iPad, And you want to check and see, like you're looking over here and you're like, oh, what is that value? How am I going to represent that? You can squint, you can hold up your value scale, you can squint at your drawing or your artwork and be comparing them, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, it's about right here. Remember I was doing that? Look at the similarities. Okay, so that's one way that you can start to train your eye and your mind to recognize and work with the values around you that you're seeing. It does take practice and concentration. So why we want to do this and what are we using value scales for? Well, that's to be able to take the information around us and put it into an artwork and organize it such that we have good contrast and we can create good artworks. Because like I said, a good artwork is going to have that full range from very light to very dark. So let me show you that. Oh, actually, let me go to that one first. I forgot I had that. I'll stop clicking, I promise. So here is an artwork that I just stole from the internet because it had this little setup going on. So you can see how it shows that this image, which is a painting, maybe, I don't know, the drawing source, probably a drawing, maybe charcoal, because it's fuzzy, has different values identified. It's like they pulled them out like this. It's got at least 8, because I don't see that daisy looking thing that's quite light represented on the side. So it's got at least 8 different values pulled out onto the side. That's pretty impressive. You want a large range of value in your artwork. Value, the range from light to dark or how light to dark something is, can be represented in your artwork or on a paper in the form of a scale, either, and you can practice that in your scales with pencil, blended, which is a smooth transition, like the ones I'm looking at the left here. Or you can use lines like hatching. These are some of the ways you may have done it in the past, or with stippling. And then you can see on the right-hand side there with the pink and the blue, the same thing, it's going to happen when we work with color, okay? Either by, if it's paint, you would be adding white or black, but you might also just use the paper to help you with that. And then as we look down here, you can see how forms, which are subjects with 3 dimensions, are going to start to look like they're taking form, the illusion of space, by using that idea of tints and shades. So especially when we start to involve color, a lot of times people have a hard time picturing how color and value work together, because they're like, yellow is just a light color, it's always that way. But really, yellow can be darker also. It just involves adding black or a darker color. It doesn't look very good, but that's how you do it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this or value in general so far? Okay, good. So when you're looking at some examples that I've had from my class, like in photography, one of the things that we focus on is trying to really establish good light sources that might provide high contrast of value. Like, look at how exciting this picture is. It wouldn't have been as exciting if it was just a sunny old day and the light was equal. It's created a lot more drama by being high contrast. Same with this one. This was a self-portrait. And look at how dramatic the lighting is by being from that direction and that intensity. Okay, so high contrast lighting, which is what our focus is going to be next week, high contrast. That use of value can be really high impact. Okay, so let's now go to Photoshop. And I want to show you what it looks like when you have a really, really good image with good balance between light and dark. Okay, this is a photograph taken by Ansel Adams, who's one of the best and greatest American photographers of all time. Okay, and Ansel Adams was like truly just an American. Oops. Oh dear, hold on. There we go. I probably stopped screen sharing, so hold on. He was truly an American hero. He was not only a pioneering photographer, but he was someone who was a conservationist because he loved the American wilderness. And he taught freely taught people the craft of photography. He was just incredible. This is in Yosemite, I'm pretty sure, because he did a lot of photography in Yosemite and other parks, Yellowstone and stuff like that. He was he lived during the earlier half and into the middle of the 19th century. So he was doing film photography. He did not do digital photography. And he had what was called a large format. I should get a picture of that because I keep talking about it and you guys might like to know. He took he used large, let me see if I can find a picture of him. Oh, I can't talk all that and type, so hold on. Ansel Adams with camera. Let's try that. Okay, look, this is awesome. Literally, there he is. Look at that up in Utah. That's his equipment. That's insane. I have such respect. So he would get pictures like this. That's incredible. And by going up in the mountains on location and taking these amazing photographs, developing them himself, sometimes I remember reading about how he would use his microwave sometimes to develop photographs. I don't even know how that works. Okay, so here's how we're going to check the values. This was something that I included in the photo editing basics, but not everybody saw that. So I definitely want to show it. So if you come over here to the side and you click on this, nope, not that one, sorry, the three buttons, and you click on add clipped adjustment. This little menu pops out. The thing that we want to look at here is levels. Levels is another name for value when it comes to adjusting your image, okay? So now what we want to look at is this picture right here. So the information we're looking at literally is the dark values, the light values, and the gray values. So those three circles at the bottom of that picture where it says 0, 100, and 255, or I think that says 1 actually, my bad. 0, 1, and 255. That 0 represents the darkest values possible in the image. And that white circle represents the brightest values in that image. So if an image is got a full range from very dark to very light, then that graph looking thing stretches from the very bottom all the way across to the very bottom on the other side. So this picture is nailing it. And I'm not surprised because he was a fantastic photographer. If your picture is not nailing it, then you can adjust it by sliding those in and out. And you can brighten your picture. You can also take this middle one and move it back and forth to change the contrast. Now, his doesn't need that because it's pretty much perfect. But I'm going to show you one that does. And you're going to be surprised, because I was, which one it was. Okay, so now let's go to Chrome. In Chrome, I was searching. I decided I'm going to use Starry Night for like all of my demonstrations this year because it's one of my favorite paintings and it's pretty interesting to analyze it this much. So look at what's happened when I went to search Starry Night by Van Gogh. Do you see how just a glance will show you that even though almost all of these, a couple of these are like somebody decided to paint their own version of Starry Night, but they're pretty obvious. Almost all of these are reproductions of Starry Night by like some company and then they're selling it, okay? But look at how different they are. Some are a little brighter, some are a little greener, some have brighter yellows, some have pumped up whites. And I was like, that is really annoying and kind of confusing. But I think that what it comes down to is that when someone's going to sell one of these and they're going to make money, they want to make money, they're looking at it and they're basically saying, well, what do people want to buy? They don't want to buy one that's dull. They love the yellows, so let's pump that up. They love the bright, let's pump that up. We need contrast so it looks good on the wall. See what I'm saying? They're manipulating that a bit so that they can make it look the best that they think people want it to be. So for the purpose of this demonstration, and probably most of mine, I decided, well, I'm going to go with the organization or the museum that owns this painting, because I'm figuring they probably have uploaded what's closest to reality. I feel like that's the safe bet. So when I had to scroll down all the way to, let's see, it's the 4th row right here in the, well, I'll put it in the middle now. This one right here. Oops, what'd I do? Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Where'd it go now? Oh, there it is. This one right here, where it says MoMA.org, the Museum of Modern Art currently is the owner of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. It's in New York City, so if you get a chance, definitely go see it. So if you click on that to open it and then save it, like I did, you can have that reproduction, which I believe is probably, hopefully, the most accurate. So now I'm going to create another new landscape canvas, and I'm going to insert the hopefully closest to accurate Starry Night. Okay, let's talk about Starry Night for 1 second. Starry Night has in it this big old, oops, sorry, my bad, got to get the paintbrush. This big old thing, that is a cypress tree. Lots of Americans don't know that because we don't have cypress trees, at least in this part of the country. Okay, so that's a cypress tree. This is a church. This is, these are like background hills and stuff. Obviously, these are stars. I shouldn't say obviously. These are stars. This is like windy, starry sky. Okay, so that's that. I wanted you to know those things so that when we talk about it now, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's use our squinty method. Ready? So stare at Starry Night right here and squint. When you squint, what emerges as the darkest values of this image when you squint? And I'm not going to answer this, so I'm waiting for you guys, Mason, Marissa, or Eric, to identify the darkest values in this image when you squint.
Well, the first thing, okay, the little swirly thing, like right in the in like the middle, the little swirly thing under the lighter swirly thing. You see it?
Do you mean this?
No, it's on. It's like way to the right, down a bit.
This?
No, like way to the right, like touching the right. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, part of the background. I agree. Okay, what else? When you squint, what emerges as the some of the darkest stuff? The tree? Or what did you say? The what? Yeah, the tree thing in the front. Absolutely. The cypress tree. It's interesting because he gives us like the cypress tree right up front in our face. And then the middle ground is behind it. And then the background, which Eric identified, and then the sky. Yeah. And then someone in my first period class was like, well, there's some outlines too. I'm using my finger and it's too heavy, but you can get the idea. And then there's like some small lines in here, but mostly that's the big stuff. Would you agree? All right, what about the brightest? Do the same thing where you squint. What is emerging as the brightest, highlighted, brightest stuff. The moon, good one. Yep. Marissa, you see any brightest stuff that's coming forward when you squint?
No.
Can you see my painting? I always feel like this is pretty bright, especially the outside ring, and not so much over here on this side, but like this, there's a line coming through here, and you have to kind of think of it also as relative, right? So even though that part, let me get rid of it so you can see it again, isn't like super bright, it is relatively bright. So when you're squinting, it's emerging as being pretty bright. And likewise, this is kind of bright, you know, especially when you're squinting, it emerges from the background. That's another thing to keep in mind. So when I do that, let me go ahead and turn this off. Oh, I got to turn off the background too. You can see that there are certain things that are emerging as the very darkest, the very lightest, and they're kind of clustered like this. So one of the things that I could point out to you is that Vincent van Gogh did kind of cluster his highlights and shadows, the very darkest, most extreme contrast in the same area. And when we go, I wish I had put that on its own layer. When we go ahead and make a rule of thirds, he's got, you know, things kind of centered on those, the rule of thirds lines, which makes it, you know, a really good composition. But let's look at, oh God, I got to get rid of all that because I'm about to do something to that photograph. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's turn this off for a minute. Remember what we did to the Ansel Adams photograph? Let's do that to Van Gogh. I'm going to make it black and white first. Now, when I make this black and white, it does help kind of identify those values. Now let's go ahead and make another clipped adjustment and check out those levels. Oh dear. See, so even though this painting is pretty amazing and has that kick to it that we all like, as far as like, wow, look at that stuff swirling around. This right here, can you see where I'm touching? Yes, you see that? That is not as good as Ansel Adams was. So if you see how when I'm sliding this inward, I can boost up those highlights, kind of like everybody was who was trying to sell it. Okay, so you can make adjustments to an artwork. Look how much better I just made that contrast. Okay, so I was just totally doctoring up Vincent van Gogh's, how can I turn it off so you can see it there? Look at how much better I made the contrast in his artwork. I don't presume to think that I should do that. I just wanted you to see it. Look how much difference that makes. But I don't want to do that because I like Vincent van Gogh's. I just wanted you to see the difference between that effect. And also the difference between that painting and what Ansel Adams was able to do. It's pretty remarkable. All right, let's turn these back on. Okay, so what questions do you have regarding value? Start with that. And how we might, well, we're going to get more into how we're going to be using value scales, but that's kind of like the beginning. Anybody having any questions on that? Okay, let's go to Schoology for a sec. Okay, on Schoology, you can see that you've got a classwork assignment due tomorrow, which we're going to go over tomorrow, but you could take a peek at it if you wanted. I'll go back there in a second. the artist log on Thursday, your 2 bonus like activity things that you can do for extra credit, which are going to be, I'll take until 2 weeks from today. Then over here on the main page, this week's folder is got the assignments starting to pop into it. If you still, this is at the bottom, but I think you can handle it. If you need access to last week's stuff, which is everything that's on the second quarter so far. So our goal was to be caught up with all of that. If you still need to access it, it's just going to be sitting right there in past weeks. I'm just going to move every week into that folder from now on. Okay, so there's everything you need right there. Remember, on the website, if you need any of the past stuff, it's just right there. Okay, and you can just keep slinging right down. Okay, what was I going to show you? Oh, yes, the weekly schedule. So the weekly schedule, there we are for today. I wanted you to take note that Thursday is a work day, but it will be offline because I have a doctor's appointment. Here's the, oh shoot, I gotta refresh, hold on. Is that, I have updated that quite a bit since. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be going over some more of that analyzing and stuff. And you can start working, and I'll go over the classwork and you can be working on that. That's due tomorrow. And then we'll also start getting into the projects, artworks for this week that will be due next Monday. Okay? What questions do you have about anything that I can help with? Okay. Oh, yep, you can. I didn't know who that was. All right, Eric and Marissa, that's all for today. You can email me any questions you have, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye.
All right. Well, have a good day.
You too. So Mason, what are you going to be doing to catch up? Can I help? Do you see how I was scrolling down on the website there so you can get to all the previous weeks and the stuff in it? Okay, so are you going to try to be catching up with that stuff? Yeah? Because you know, the only way to not get credit is to not do the work, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's an issue. And I don't want that to happen, really.